Right. All right. Good morning, everyone. It's great to be here, and especially when we're talking about digital technologies. I've got a well put together, esteemed panel here that we would like to talk about the adoption of technology, not so much in terms of what's been adopted, but also give you a bit of an image of where adoption is at the moment and how can we improve adoption when it comes to technology and digital, especially in the region, especially construction. With that, I'd like to start maybe something that maybe gets everyone a bit exercised. By show of hands, I think we've all heard certain reports that talk about adoption of digitization, etc. But there's one that really struck me. There's a number of publications in the beginning of the year talk about the adoption of digitization in construction, and it claims that BIM and PMIS has been widely adopted in the construction industry. First of all, I'd like to maybe just get this statement approved by everyone in this room. By show of hands, do you agree with this? Do you agree that BIM and PMIS has been widely adopted in the region? Okay. I see a few people don't really agree to that, which, okay, this is good. 2 people do and two people don't, which is why we have them on the stage today. Okay. For those that think BIM and PMIS have been widely adopted in the region, do you think this has enabled a platform or a foundation for us to adopt technologies beyond, such as AI and others? And I'm sure there's many other conversations that's going to come in for this, but by show of hands again, do you think this has created a foundation for us to talk about, or at least bring in AI and digital twinning and the rest of the digitization to the construction industry? Show of hands. Okay. So you don't believe that BIM and PMIS have been widely adopted, but you still think they've helped us to. Okay, that's an interesting one. With that said, I'd pick on you first then. That's how. Well, I think first of all, it's funny that you don't think it's fully adopted, but you think it still paved the way to digitization. Would you be able to just tell us what would you define adoption? Maybe that's why you didn't put your hand up for adoption. And what are the key factors to determine whether digitization has been adopted in the region or not?
Yes, it's working. Good morning, everyone. Thanks a lot for having me here. Thanks for the question, Anas. I think it's a very wide and difficult question, but I will try to explain why I didn't raise my hand on the first one. And when we all talk about the adoption, I think that's where we wanted to start with a better understanding, because I think it's very wide what we call adoption. Some people have a Revit license and they say we've adopted BIM. I think that you really need to differentiate the different levels of adoption. For me, there is first an acceptance, and I think the acceptance is what you see with all the hands raised. We all accept that BIM is there for a reason, and it's useful, and it's widely used. But then you have really the integration of it, right? And the integration throughout the whole partners within the construction, that's where, for me, we still have to discuss. We are still building massive projects where we print everything still in 2D, in paper, for approvals, for procurement, for all of that. So is it really adopted throughout? I'm not entirely sure. And then the last step is it has to be efficiently used. And the efficiency into the BIM usage is also something in some parts of the works can be questioned. So I think it's interesting we have 2 very exciting days coming in, right? To put these glasses on, and when we would see all these new technologies and people saying, we've adopted, to try to understand where it has been adopted and to stay positive, really look at the success story behind that adoption, where it was, and then just to try to push it to the next level. Because we have some very key factors. I think Rob just mentioned it. We have the leadership in the region, and leadership is key. We have the leadership that has given us visions, and I think for us a very positive way forward with projects, with drive, with collaboration. Here is also a very good example of people from different backgrounds coming together and share experiences. So we do have the key factors for adoption. Now there are some linked with costs and return on investment. Maybe we're going to talk about it later on. But I think we have in the region amazing key factors, but we need also to be positively realistic into where it's actually adopted and look at where the adoption is positive and take it from there.
Absolutely. So there's a lot of adoption when it comes to technology, but we may not be able to see the full adoption yet. But I want to maybe bring Eisa to the conversation. Eisa, you've put your hand up for the first question, but you didn't put your hand up for the second question, which is interesting as well. First of all, as a seasoned developer, and you've worked on a number of programs across the UAE, what would you say the most adopted technologies are on your programs? But more importantly, what is the most beneficial ones when it comes to technology?
Well, I need to elaborate here. First, I like the word adoption, and it's the best word to describe this topic, actually.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you why I raised my hand, because if we don't adapt today and we didn't adapt, we wouldn't be here. So we already started adoption. I'm expecting 2 years later, the question will be technology enforcement to the market. So within time, it's not going to be a choice. It's going to be a must. In a fast-paced economy, I think adoption already started somehow by movement, somehow by the technology and advancement and success cases. So I will go a little bit back 4 or 5 years back when we started to look at our project management information system. Internally, we looked at the portfolio, and suddenly, while we are improving our portfolio, Miras came to Dubai Holding, so the portfolio was larger, so we need technology. We need to improve the way we manage. A year later, COVID. So COVID, everything was virtual. If we remember the days, we had meetings virtually. So having virtual was the step. We started to adapt virtual in some sort of management reporting and monitoring. And then we started to think we went fast forward to the future. We don't have time to think about it. We went to the future quickly. So project management information system that we were thinking about was we were within. We started to look at our document management system, why we are using this system, not the other one. We started to look at the schedule, the value of work done or earned value. Then we thought we need something holistic. We designed our own, data lake of information, because we wanted each project to have a bank of data, not just a fragmented system. So there was no solution to adapt to our needs. We created our own internal system. So with time, we created our own metadata from raw data. 2 years back, the company decided to become virtual savvy. We want to jump to the future, but we cannot do it with tools of today. So we wanted to drill down even deeper. So having a virtual design and construction as a vision to the company, BIM was the solution. So we can't think of going forward without BIM. Yes, last year we applied on several projects. We've seen success. This year, the entire portfolio will go through BIM. We've seen success. And that will be the backbone. If you ask me about what is success story, I would say adapting BIM and virtual design and construction is the first step to integrating with other systems, to having the backbone correctly designed and data bank with you.
Absolutely. So you're looking at it from a data perspective.
Yes.
Absolutely. But a funny thing, I think there's different people within different positions. They look at technology differently, and I'm glad that we talked about the data perspective, because that links to the question I had earlier, which is, does it take us to AI and blockchain and IoT and digital twinning? And the answer is yes, if you're looking from a data perspective. But Theo, you've been adopting BIM for some time in the region. How do you look at? I believe you look at BIM slightly different or digital slightly different, not just for digital, not just for data, but also there's other users that you guys use it for. Can you shed some light on that?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for the question. And I will pick up from where Eisa left. I think the minimum or the basis to leap forward is this adoption of BIM, having centralized data, organized data, structured data, because without it, nothing can happen. And I say this in the context not of single projects, which probably the adoption is easier or ad hoc, but more from the perspective of a company trying to have their entire portfolio, real estate developer, large construction programs where it comes with a number of difficulties, the fast pace, the number of stakeholders, and so on. So, and of course, with the context that there is sufficient maturity, not only inside the organization, but also in the supply chain to support this initiative. So I think a few years back when the Industry 4.0 or Construction 4.0 was breaking in the news, we can't saw in the future what would be happening, but it is now that we start to feel it. So I think it's now the first time that we are able to really see these cyber-physical systems, platforms, software which support us to kind of bridge the digital realm with a physical realm. And I will just mention a few initiatives that I've seen picking up traction and working well. One is the hyper-realistic visualization and XR, right? Okay. So we are able to navigate to our properties, to our portfolio virtually way before we actually build it. Sales and marketing are able to visualize and see much earlier what is going to be built. But also construction is able to benefit, being able to at any point of time compare what should be built, the design state against the as-built. Which brings me to the second initiative, being able to bring the site in our screens virtually, right? Data capturing. I think this is something that has been picked up a lot lately, whether that's through 360 cameras on helmets, whether that's with handheld or carried devices, and lately with drones, right? Which not only create imagery, but also actual 3D models, which you can superimpose to your own work. Obviously, prefabrication and modularization. I think there are different stages of adoption, depending the different projects, depending the mandate of each company. But I think this is a trend, and this cannot be supported without the digitization and standardization across the board. And all of them leading to the digital twins, plural, right? Because there's not a single twin. I'm saying this not in the context only of the OPEX, but also in the context of the CAPEX. So not just a common data environment, but a connect data environment, right? So our system's able to actually comprehend the information, rather get information from the data that is, flying all around our projects.
Absolutely. Talking about adoption, we it's great that we've had some time to talk about the digital technologies that we would like to adopt and the obvious reasons why, whether it's data management and especially for large developers, or even the many other use cases that you've mentioned, Theo. But I'd like to start with the tough questions now, and start with you, Amr. That's why you're right next to me. Talking about adoption, now you've made a decision as a developer or as a client, I want to use technology, and these are the use cases I want to use it for. How do you move from there? What kind of strategies, what kind of initiatives that you have to put in place? Or is it just a matter of, which I don't think you guys did that. It's just a matter of, I'm going to write specifications and scope and RFPs that requires my supply chain to deliver digital, I'm just going to leave it to them. Is that the case, or is that not the case, especially with ROSHN, where you guys have developed some sort of culture and everything else to make sure that these digital technologies can be adopted the right way?
Yeah, since we are talking about adoption, let's go back 10 years. Okay, so 10 years ago, before the big programs in the region talking about the World Cup, Expo, and the BIF programs, everyone was saying we are not adopting BIM because it's not mandated, it's not required. And BIM is not about buying the software license, okay? Because this is a big thing, like when people use certain tools or technologies, they believe that they actually adopted them. So moving from statistics and researchers talking about like the big barriers of implementing BIM is having it being mandated by the clients or the owners or the developers, to an area where major programs in the region mandates BIM, is a big shift in the mandate, in the culture. And this drives what is the level of adoption for BIM. So do we want just to use the software? Absolutely not. And then the conversation moves from using the tools into digitizing the processes. So when you think about 2D drafting and CAD, it is the same process, it's just being digitized. But when you move to BIM, you need to think about how you produce information, how you develop the real world, and then reflect on a software kit to help you to reflect that on a system or a technology. And this is where, for us, like we started with building it digitally first. If you cannot build it digitally first, you will not be able to build it physically efficiently, because like there is a big culture resistance says that, okay, we have built it without BIM, we can build it with CAD, but okay, let's talk about the cost overruns, let's talk about the time overruns, let's talk about quality. So like a counter argument to we have done it without BIM is, what are the end results? And this is where, as ROSHN, we from day one we said, okay, we're not going through this pain again, we will deliver it digitally. And this is not only to serve design and construction, but also sales and marketing. And BIM is not, for us, is not using the software. It is exchanging information through the entire company and with the supply chain. And as an asset owner or a developer, we own the whole life cycle of the development. So we are interested in breaking silos across the supply chain or the delivery partners. So we kind of push everyone out of their comfort zone. So like during design phase, let's have a proper design that can be contracted and with minimal design issues, I would say, because this will give clarity to the next player. Like if the contractor can see the project, he can price it well, he can reduce the contingencies, he can have better visibility on his commercials, which will eventually control the cost and control the time.
Mm-hmm.
And moving to the operation, like we bring our operations team during the early stage, because BIM, again, is not one of the key things, is taking decisions as early as possible. And what the technology enables us to do is to visualize the end product so people can say their opinions, change it on a virtual model,
mm-hmm.
rather than doing a change on the physical world. So this is like kind of the culture behind what we are doing. But then trying to communicate this through RFPs and through specification and all of that. And it's not just we are throwing the ball to the delivery partner and say, okay, this is what we want, this is what you do. We engage with them throughout the journey to make sure that they benefit from the lessons learned that we have, because we have multiple developments across the region and there are similarities.
Mm-hmm.
And the same is amplified within the industry itself. So contractor will keep building the same thing, like he will install the same door thousands of times. Why it's new on every project? there is a big knowledge that is stored within individuals, within companies that we need to use when we are creating digital models, which will reduce reduce the waste and control the cost.
Absolutely. Well, I'd like to maybe bring Eisa to this, because you've mentioned that you're bringing in BIM for obvious reasons, and Amr and the rest of the colleagues have talked about that it's a transformation, right? And you've said that as well. But when it comes to transformation, you talk about supply chain that might not be ready. Do we see, especially coming from a project management office, do you see the costs and the value of the projects are now higher instead of being less? Because it should be less because we're using digital to enable us to visualize things and etc. But do you see the supply chain reacting to this transformation by asking for higher costs just because you have to pay more for a more digitally enabled supply chain?
If I take it as is, will be higher.
Okay.
If I listen to whatever the vendor tell me immediately, it will be high.
Yep.
For sure. But if I listen to what Amr just said about thinking about the entire supply chain, entire life cycle, it means I have to design my journey correctly.
Mm-hmm.
So what we did internally, we classified our portfolio. We have very diversified real estate, residential, hotel, asset, entertainment, retail, different products or different range of built environment categories. So after classifying, we knew what level of adoption we need in each area, what level of maturity we require in technology in each category. And moving to digital twin, when we think about not life cycle is not when the project is handed over, but we are thinking as a developer, the life cycle is until end of journey of that asset depletion. So then I'm thinking about digital twin here. And this year, we will finish our first digital twin. So we had to think about categories of digital twin. So digital twinning, it's not just the basic or static one, informative, dynamic, and there are other categories. So we said we'll take the journey correctly, step by step. We test cases, certain technology. We know what is the objective. Then when we take the technology or adapt the technology, we always go with the basic. I don't like to jump with full features, and then I don't know how this will have return on investment to me, but the basics is the right thing to start for anybody. Start, learn the basic, master the basic, let the people internally trained, everybody knows this language, and then move with the next step with the feature. If we go that way, it's not going to be expensive. If we think about total life cycle, it's not going to be expensive. If we think about entire portfolio and then with time, things will be done internally with the team, it's not going to be expensive. But if we buy technology, plug, play, it's going to be really expensive and people will be pushing back.
It's having the long-term vision and strategy to accommodate this. I'd like to just thank everyone that have been sending questions. Please continue to do so. There's a barcode that keeps popping up behind us, so please, it's more of an interactive conversation. So if there's any more questions or comments you'd like to add, please do so. Now that we've covered developers, I want to point and pick on the only contractor on the panel.
Always picking up.
So first of all, we're talking about transformation of digital, but not only digital, but we're also talking about information. And we hear a lot of contractors identifying the challenge that I'm not just giving you a building anymore, I'm giving you data with it, which should be a new product altogether they're asking me for. How do you guys find that from an opportunity, but also from a challenger perspective for adoption as a contractor?
Well, I mean, very good points, and I fully agree that's where we want to go, right? But again, I come back on the realistic side of things. We started with BIM 12, 15 years ago, and today, everybody is comfortable to talk about it because we've been educated to it, we've tried it, we have skilled people that can manage BIM, that can use it, we see different opportunities. But it took that time, and we are still today facing in the supply chain people that are not using it, asking why. The level of development of the BIM also sometimes is lost throughout the project. You're talking about OPEX. and definitely there is a need, but sometimes it's still lost in translation somewhere during the 4 or 5 years of construction on mega project. We see a change in now certification is there. You were talking about the RFPs, all the specifications are there, so we see things. But that's BIM, and we're talking about adoption and new technologies. I guess the next 2 days we'll talk about AI, we'll talk about drones, we'll talk about modular, even still, trying to get there. So the pains are real, and you were talking about what are the main ones. I think the uncertainty on the return on investment is something that is still hitting us. You want to invest, a new technology is an investment. Whatever you say, you need to invest. Nobody really knows exactly up to where we need to go. So it's an investment, and it's not fast and easy, because you need to still learn. We still miss some skilled forces. We need to be real. People on site, working every day, they are not used or they don't have access really to the technology that easily. So that is still a pain. And I don't think the return on investment mindset has to be linked with price. It really, and there I fully agree with you. It has to be thought, and with you as well, with the whole process. We are trying to make the market and the construction better, and it's going to take a bit of time. It's going to be a collaborative effort to make it a success. That's the only way. But if you still keep on choosing for cheapest price, if you still really pinpoint on that cost impact, and if the mindset is still linked to that, then it's going to be very difficult to have a full adoption, because so that's really the difficulties we are still seeing, and we're working on massive projects, and we've been in the digital since years, yet that effort is still quite difficult. But I would be very happy to have that adoption and participate to that moves.
Theo, I want to maybe just on the back of what has been mentioned in terms of adoption, how do you see the supply chain? And this is, I think 3 people have asked that question. What do you think about the supply chain? Is it helping you guys to achieve what you want to achieve? Is it not? Is it challenging? Is it still, what can we do to make sure there's more adoption within the region?
Yeah, this is the $1 million question, right? So are we there yet? No, obviously. Construction is a very traditional sector. We all know that. Statistics say so as well. The level of adoption of technology in general is average. In the region, I would say this is a bit of a teething problem. I think the will is there. The big programs in the region have this maturity, and they are trying to bring a top-down approach into pushing all stakeholders involved into the projects to participate in this digital journey. And because of that, we've seen a fast-paced adoption. And I think COVID, while I'm very unfortunate event, helped a lot. Those 2 years, I personally saw a leap into the adoption. We had to go to paperless construction. We had to go to adopt quite a few digital initiatives. Now, the barriers, I have two sides. One is perhaps the financial aspect. First adopters, there are many stakeholders who are the first adopters, so developers have to pay the price for the first adoption. Hardware, software, skills are not cheap, right? So in a sense, we are financing the adoption in the industry, which is a good thing. I think eventually this will come back, and it is a societal. It has a societal aspect as well. And the second is more like a maturity, mindset, education aspect. I think the traditional model of contracting and construction, like we transfer the risk to someone else entirely, and we don't want to know what is happening there, right? You're going to build it for me, and I don't want to know. This is slowly changing. And I think even through just monitoring and controlling and PMIS systems, slowly all stakeholders or client side are starting to understand that they have to be active participants in this. Now, I think there are still steps to take, whether that's a top-down approach with governmental initiatives, with creating standards, with creating programs to support small and medium enterprises to buy in, which is very important. We've seen a few of them. I think there are ways there, and it really comes down to how we expect our projects to progress. I think we're in a good place, but hopefully, I think as we spread the word of digital adoption, things will become better.
Absolutely. We talked about a lot of things that are under our control, right? Whether you're a developer or a specialist or a contractor. But the things that are outside of our control may seem like the technology vendors, right? The technology vendors and the technology providers. We don't see that much integration, although there's a lot of partnerships and a lot of great work that's been happening, maybe not so much in this region. Amr, from your perspective, I know I've heard you a lot talk about the technology vendors, and you've got a love-hate situation with them where, we love them because we need to work with them and utilize them, and there's a lot of them, there's a lot more innovative, but they still sit in the challenging column rather than the opportunity column for now. How can we shift digital technologies, whether it's to do with the integration between the different softwares that allow us to have the data, whether it's the availability or the usability of certain softwares, or even the fitting of certain legislations that we have in this region, servers, that a lot of vendors don't really do that. They still have the servers sitting outside of the region. How do we shift them from being the vendors, from being in the challenge column into the column where we could think, right, that we're working together and now we are achieving a better adoption?
Yeah, this is a good question.
Mm-hmm. So I know a lot of vendors would at me, but
no, it's like from a developer perspective or from an owner perspective, like we tend to be vendor neutral as much as we can and focus on the data exchange through the life cycle. But this is a counter mechanism to what is happening in the technology domain. So at the moment, there are lots of software vendors who have developed their technologies around a different market, being it the US or Europe, and it's not for the region, for the Middle East. So this what kind of forced lots of consultants, contractors to develop their own internal tools, which will help each individual entity, but it's creating more fragmentation in the industry. So we want to bring, again, standardization, and then take the regional standardization, and then take it to the technology vendors.
Mm-hmm.
So they can think about how they can make it easy and less expensive to, let's say, code compliance. So we deal with data. When you check any code or any standard, it gives you minimum or maximum values for a certain data again. So why we spend time printing papers, doing hand calculations to check it, while a software can do it for us? But when you look at the current software kits that we have, it's not tailored to address the regional requirements.
Absolutely.
And this is one thing. And then
interesting,
when we start talking about PMIS and cost data and financial data and like confidential data, like there are local legislations that enforces data producers to keep the data within the region, data sovereignty, okay, which is the right thing to do. Like if you don't want someone controlling your sensitive assets outside the company and being under cyber attacks or any kind of threats. So there is an important point of having local data sovereignty. And this is being adopted in Europe, in the UK, in Australia, but it's less adopted here in the region. So this is, again, like, it's not only the software vendor, but it's also the big players like data centers. So there is a need of raising the quality of the infrastructure for data, having local data centers, AWS, Azure, like you name it. But then also bring the people, like the technology vendors, to utilize these local data services, but also adopt or enhance their technologies to serve the market.
With that said, I think we're running out of time, and there's a lot. I think that particular topic itself needs another panel. With the time that we have, just in 30 seconds, and I'd like to start with you, Eisa. What would you walk away today as a recommendation for anyone in this room or outside this room as just tips and best scenarios, especially with your journey that you've been doing when it comes to digital adoption?
I'll start with the different key stakeholders here. I also have the suppliers and vendors. Some of them, I don't know if their pricing is wrong or right. The way they price is confusing for us. It depends on the number of windows or number of doors or number of keys. I don't understand that. So just make it simple for us as developers. Some of you are really clear. This is the size of the built-up area, the price is like that. So that's technology is easy. So if you make it difficult, you make it difficult to entire supply chain. Technology starts with us as developer to choose and ends with us at the end. Who pays for it is the end customer. It's not only us. So I think we should all be responsible throughout the chain. Contractors, some of them are really behind. You need to speed up. You have to be the same level of the tier one. But resisting and staying in the pack will make you out of the market. Consultant, just improve your knowledge about the technology. They're doing fine. And developer, as you said, we should adapt. We have no option as big developer. We should adapt and improve the maturity of the digital construction.
Absolutely. Thank you. Theo?
I think from the cultural perspective, we need to think digital first. We build digital first. This is the main thing. And the second, if I may say, which resonates with what I was saying, standardization. What I need, how I need it, when I need it, all of these have to be defined. Communication is the key. We manage a very large portfolio. If we want to aggregate data across projects, it's impossible. Every project has done their own thing, naming whatever data parameter in a different way, and it makes it impossible. So yes, I think that would be my message.
Absolutely. Thanks.
Yeah, I think for me, again, be realistic. Try to collaborate early, because often what we try to see is adopting, along the way is always very difficult. And reward. I mean, we have people that are trying, and it's not always easy to price it correctly. But I agree with you also. Sometimes, we don't really understand or know, but then accept that we don't fully know. And then do we jump on this journey together or not? And then that's what I see as a reward. It's not talking about money, but it's that collaborative, early stage, realistic, and let's try. And you will see a lot of, I hope, success stories during the next 2 days. Focus on these. Take that example, and you were talking about paving the way with BIM for other technologies. I think it is. I think really the way regulatory has come up, the way the skilled workers has come up, the way we have initiatives, the way everybody is pushing it, has been really a key. So, yep.
I think it's saving the energy that we exert in resistance and put it into education and learn about the new technologies rather than just resisting it. Because by the time it will become, with the legislation's development that's happening across the region, it's going to be mandated. And there is, like, if you don't learn now, when you have the time, you will be forced to deliver when you don't have the time.
Absolutely, which is the case many times.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, first of all, I'd like to, since it's unfortunately time for us to leave the stage, I'd like to first of all thank everyone for their comments and questions. Sorry I didn't have the time to address all of them, but I'm sure you'll find us around today and tomorrow to answer any of the questions that you may have. I'd like to thank our panelists, Eisa, Theo, Benoit, Amr. Thank you very much for your time and your contribution. Thank you.